Hey everyone, I'm Amy Zelmer from Faces of TBI, and welcome to the Brain Health Online Summit Training Series. I am a TBI survivor myself from a fall on the ice in February of 2014. And myself, along with Dr. Jami from Minnesota Functional Neurology, we saw a need in the brain injury community for more training and education on alternative healthcare methods and modalities for those suffering from the lingering effects of a brain injury. Our goal is to help educate and bring awareness to this invisible injury that affects 2.8 million Americans each year and is the leading cause of death and disability in the world. Each day, we will be bringing you 3 to 4 speakers who will share their experience in either working with brain injury patients or their own real-life experience of living with a brain injury. And today I'm here with Jami and Braden Benz. And Braden is currently a sophomore in high school, and he enjoys an active lifestyle, participating in many extracurricular activities. Braden thrives in many areas of talent, including sports and music. And one might say that Braden has a special musical gift displayed by his talent on the drums, guitar, piano, and accordion. Braden greatly enjoys the sports of soccer and basketball, and his love of sports is clearly evident at every game. Excelling as a member of the Saints soccer team, Braden was asked to play on multiple skill level teams, such as JV and varsity, as only a freshman. On the first game of his sophomore soccer season, Braden had a traumatic accident on the field. The day was August 23rd, 2016, and it's a day that he and his family will never forget. Braden took a blow to the head from a soccer ball, which caused the opposing side of his head to collide with an opponent. That day, Braden suffered from a severe concussion, which turned his life as a typical teenager upside down. So welcome to the summit, you guys. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So I'm going to let you guys kind of jump into your story and let everybody kind of know, what happened.
I'll let you go.
Sure, it was the first soccer game of the season against Century. It was a corner kick, and the ball hit me on the left side of my head, and it flew into my other head. My other side of my head flew into another opponent on the right side, and the ref saw it, and he said that you need to sit down and sit out and go out of the game. But there were no subs on the bench, so I decided that it's 15, 20 minutes left of the game, so I continued playing the game. After drove home, told my parents about it, and went to school the next day, and the sports med diagnosed me with a concussion. And after that, it was probably about a week until every day was tough. There was a lot of symptoms. They said that those were normal concussion symptoms, hoping 2 days to 2 weeks they would go away. They didn't go away in that amount of time. I was passing out in the cafeteria on the soccer bus. So we decided to go to Children's Hospital in Minneapolis, and they did some testing and found that my impact test scores were very low, and gave a bunch of restrictions for school, like no driving, can't be in the cafeteria because of the noise, don't be in the hallways because of all the overstimulation. Some of the symptoms I was having was headaches, dizzy all the time. I used to go numb in my palms, neck, and my cheeks, and they said that's just overstimulation. And memory problems, reading problems, vision problems.
He had some ringing in his ears. So just to back up a little, because he went through that so fast. So that day, August 23rd, that first game is definitely life-changing for Braden and our family. Kind of what he explained with, he drove home that night. We didn't see the blow on the field. There were many kids that seemed like getting injured at that specific game. I don't know why. One other kid did get a concussion, and I kept thinking, thank goodness that's not Braden. Not knowing that he also got the blow and a double whammy, kind of, where his brain was almost like whiplashed. Until he got home. But things just kept escalating. Sports med, when they called that next day, reminded us, yes, it's a concussion. I, as a parent, thought a concussion, how bad can it be? Maybe, like they said, 2 days to 2 weeks. I would have never dreamt. And we have people to this day that truly are like, is this really still from the concussion? Because he looks so perfectly normal. He carries his suffering like no other. People don't know truly what TBI patients, as you would know, Amy, are really enduring, because it's a good face mask that he puts on until either he gets in the car after school or we get home and I find out, man, your symptoms were nuts today because I had a biology test, Mom. I had an algebra test, and those high cognitive classes would throw him into such high symptoms of a migraine. On a scale of 1 to 10, it would be a 6 to 10 pain level. So he was just enduring the day, trying to get through it. Maybe you want to explain what you would do to kind of help bring the symptoms down.
Sure. I would leave algebra class. Usually it was algebra that I would have to leave early or my off periods. And our school counselor office had a couch. So I shut off all the lights and I laid down on the couch to bring symptoms down a little bit.
So we kind of worked that out with the school that, if we're going to get him to be able to stay in school, then we have to have many accommodations for him right now.
So I just kind of want to stop there for a second. So you went to Children's Hospital here in Minneapolis, which I've heard nothing but great things about.
Yes.
And it sounds like they laid out the academic accommodations for you guys. And it sounds like your school was very receptive to those.
Yes.
Great. Because I know sometimes I hear stories of like the schools like, oh, well, whatever,
Well, we did have challenges along the way. It's the first true brain injury that they've dealt with. So there were definitely challenges where teachers were still giving him tests, and he was put on a 504 plan, so to do 50% of the workload of a normal student, an average student. And teachers would forget, and Braden didn't want to advocate for himself. He was just used to doing all of this and maintaining A's previously. So he just thought, I'm just going to keep trying my hardest to get through this. And finally, the symptoms got so terrible that we were like, the only way to keep the school on board, Braden, is for you to have a voice and start telling the teachers, remember, is this my test or not? Or what numbers am I doing on this test? And it would remind them, oh yeah, he can't do a full complete test. Yeah. Let's just test him on what is needed so we know he understands the concept.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is important for any parents watching to understand.
Yes.
The whole academic accommodations, it's a real thing.
Yes.
If your doctor doesn't understand it, find someone who does.
And if your school doesn't understand it, keep fighting. They probably thought, oh, here comes Mrs. Benz again. But I am a very determined mom, and I wasn't about to let him suffer any more than he was already.
Yeah.
So I really stayed on him and made sure these accommodations were done. And he started also, as time went, really advocating for himself, saying, did you really want me to take all these notes? And the teacher would be like, oh yeah, that's right. You probably shouldn't be writing all of this down. So the more he would just simply remind him, he didn't want to be different in the class compared to other kids, but yet it was the only way to, and kids are so supportive of him, the other students, which is wonderful because I think they kind of saw how bad you were and knew that it just wasn't Braden. Mm-hmm.
So Jami, what was this like for you as a parent to like watch what happened? And, like you said, when you came home, you guys didn't even realize how bad it was. So what's this journey been like for you as a mom?
It's been very, very difficult. I probably cried a ton at the beginning. And sometimes I still choke up because I'm like, oh, it's just so emotional when it's your kid. You always wish, oh, I wish it was me instead of him going through it. But, I don't know. I would say at first, like I said, I didn't think it was going to be this severe at all. I thought it would be short-lived. and things will just get better. But he kept doing everything, and that's mistakes we made at the beginning, as well as caregivers, doctors in this area just aren't as well versed. And so I'm so grateful we found within a month, we were down in the cities, found Children's Hospital that said you have to stay in school. They abided by our wish not to put him on meds because we are a family that truly tries to go more the holistic route. But yet I didn't want him suffering from severe migraines. So they would call things in saying as a backup, if you need amitriptyline or whatever, at least you know it's there. He never did use it. He would use Tylenol, Excedrin, extra strength. And then when we finally learned that it was more centralized by different tests that we had done at the National Dizzy and Balance Center, our PT gal back here in Bismarck had said it's centralized. This could take 18 months or longer. So we went to our chiropractor, that's neurology chiropractic, and I think he could relate as a parent. I'm like, oh my gosh, don't tell me 18 months. I'm not taking that answer. I'm not taking a lifetime answer. I just need to know what options are out there. And that's when he said, let's refer you to Minnesota Functional Neurology with Dr. Jami. And that was a game changer. So what I would tell parents is, don't just settle. Find the caregivers that truly, truly care or have been through this journey themselves, like Dr. Schmoll, because they get it and they can relate to someone. So, yeah.
And I think that's a very critical point is, don't just settle. And in one of the other interviews on the summit, one of the other speakers talks about, not every doctor can understand every single system of the brain. And,
right.
Depending on what's damaged is going to require different treatments. And that's where functional neurology, they're trained to figure out what part of the brain isn't working right.
Yes.
And so don't, it took me 2.5 years to find Jeremy.
Okay.
And, it's like, nobody was addressing my vision problem, and everybody kept telling me my eyes were fine because structurally they were fine.
Yeah.
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 So
Yeah.
it's like, no, something's wrong. I can't explain it.
Mm-hmm.
So just not settling. And, you're kind of the opposite of me. I was told I'd feel better in 4 to 6 weeks, and then I didn't. And then
Okay.
it could take 6 months. And then I wasn't,
Yes.
I would have kind of preferred to be told this could take a while. But
Yeah.
then to hear you say, oh no, we're not going to accept that as an answer. So
Yeah. I'm a pretty stubborn woman when it comes to my kids. I'm so overprotective, and most parents are, but I was like, that's just not a good enough answer. And if someone wasn't going to refer me, I Googled every single night. I still Google everything about concussions and TBIs to become more educated myself as I'm speaking to other parents that keep reaching out to us saying, hey, my kid got a basketball concussion or a football concussion, or some parents get upset that the kids have to sit out for a week at a time because of their concussion. And I'm like, let me tell you my story. It's 9 months later, and we're only seeing relief the last month or two here that we started with Dr. Schmoll, that we know we're on the right road, but I'm still going to keep pushing because a 16-year-old maybe doesn't quite have that advocacy and that voice that we as our age would. So.
Right. And they don't always know. So Braden, I know you went home that night.
Yep.
When did you really think something was wrong?
Probably right after I got the hit to the head. The rest of the game was pretty bad. Stumbling everywhere, couldn't really see. My head was hurting.
But being the team player you are, you kept on playing, and that's so typical,
And that's the hard thing is, people are like, well, are you upset with the school, the refs? Do you blame anyone? They ask us this constantly. And it's like, well, you can't go down that road of being bitter. It happened. He's a very driven kid on anything he does. And he's like, Mom, that should have told you something. That tells everybody how driven I am that I kept playing. And I'm like, but you don't understand at age 16 what this just did to your brain.
Yeah.
If the ref truly would have said, just sit out and be evaluated, it would be probably a little bit different game changer for you of how things maybe would have gone, you know.
Mm-hmm. So I assume you haven't gotten back to sports?
No, not yet.
No.
Yeah.
He hasn't really been able to run
Not
much,
run.
and that's what we're working on with Dr. Schmo here. Will be next is to get him. He does a lot of biking and stationary biking to get the blood pumping and flowing. He was doing elliptical for a while, but that didn't feel very good being so dizzy, so he stopped that.
You're going up and down when you're on that elliptical, and if you're having that visual problem,
Yeah.
And then
And
is running a problem because of the bouncing motion?
The bouncing and that's kind of the problem
That was
with it.
my struggle too.
Yeah. He does have that upward beating nystagmus of his eyes, and that's probably what was causing a lot of this dizziness, but that has diminished greatly, almost gone, I think, now.
Mm-hmm.
So before he couldn't stand and close his eyes for more than 2 seconds, and now he can stand and keep balance. And other things are starting. The dizziness dropped now to maybe a 1.5 on a scale of 1 to 10. It used to be like a 3 to a 5. So that sucked all his energy out during the day, just being that dizzy.
Yep. Yeah. My dizzy and balance is probably like a 9 out of 10 in the beginning.
Okay, wow.
And I walked around like that for 2 years.
Oh, yes.
And like I said, so many doctors just don't know what to do with you.
Yeah.
And even the neurologist, I have been going to a different chiropractor. They just don't know what to do with you.
Right. We found that we say along our journey, we feel very blessed. We're very faith-filled people, and I pray a ton, especially for my children. But we do say we found the best doctors because, like I said, children's didn't let him quit school. We were going to look at homeschooling. I was begging them. I'm like, please don't make him go through this. Yeah. I will try to figure out homeschooling. And they said, that will be worse in the end. You need to keep him in school, have all accommodations. They abided by our wish not to put him on meds if at all necessary, if at all we could avoid it. And then we found Dr. Schmo that, we gave him a huge hug the very first week we had completed with him, because it was like I said, it changed a lot of symptoms for Braden. And it's to find those providers that truly, truly care, that know they're there for your well-being. We've met a lot along the road that we saw once, and I'm like, nope, we're not going back. We'll just find the right person. So.
Yeah. So what has some of your treatment been? What are some of the things that have helped you?
I would say Dr. Schmo does figure eights. I think the figure eights, and he stems your tongue, your eyebrow, your wrist, your knee. Trying to get the nerves to register to the brain to tell your body where you are in space.
Your vision
Exercises that he's done on this Focus Builder app.
Every day, yeah. We probably do these home exercises maybe 5 times a day, and they used to take us a little longer, and now it's shortening because we're getting so good at them. But we know they're helping definitely by doing them. So.
Yeah, and I know, part of Dr. Schmo's treatment plan is you do these exercises for like 2 to 3 minutes a day instead of fasting someone with an hour of treatment that can't handle it.
Right. Yeah.
I know even in the beginning, I don't know if you do the ones where like you look at your finger and turn your head, but even those maybe 1 minute of those, and I was like done. So I can't imagine trying an hour.
Yeah. And we used to do, like we had PT back home. We went to 2-3 times a week, but really she was at a loss of what to do for him anymore, I feel like. And she wanted to cut us back to doing more stuff in the home, but she just didn't know what.
Yeah.
And then we were doing chiro at least once or twice a week. And that was more cranial adjustments is what it's called. And then we had supplements like crazy because I said we're more holistic. So we put him on a lot of different things. So we tried a bunch of things, but nothing just would work until we finally went to Dr. Schmo. And it's amazing when he would show us World War II vets did some of this stuff too.
Yeah.
And we didn't realize that. We're like, oh my goodness. So our goal is to go back once Braden is completely healed, go back to Children's Hospital with the doctor we had there and go approach the board, because we want them to know the success from Minnesota Functional Neurology.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the broken part of the system is these doctors who don't quite, they scratch your head, I don't know what to do with you, but then they don't know who's over here that can help them.
Yes,
So
yeah.
getting that bridge in place, I think, is critical.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially early on in the care.
And Braden always reminds me, I get so anxious because I see some symptoms decreasing. Now that we've started with Dr. Schmo, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, let's ask him, when can you run? When can you finally handle noise? He hasn't been able to be in band all school year, and he's like #1 drummer practically in our state. So it's so life-changing. Like, when can we do this? Or let's ask him this. And Braden, it reminds me, he says, Mom, I saw all these other people for 7-8 months, and nobody was able to do one thing for a symptom except Dr. Schmo. So give him some time. But I'm not a patient person. Yeah.
Braden, did you have any other physical problems? Like, did you hurt your neck at all in the injury?
My neck was sore at the beginning. It was really sore. It kind of, the stiffness and soreness went away until Dr. Schmo adjusted me and felt really good. I didn't even know my neck was that sore. And so now my neck feels amazing.
Yeah, he really didn't realize it, but we just had the adjustment done this last appointment, and it actually dropped the dizziness by 0.5 just on adjusting the neck. And I was so shocked over that, I guess. So.
Yeah, and and I think especially teenagers, like, I feel if my injury had happened when I was like even 20, I think I might have had a different recovery path.
Yeah.
Teenagers can rebound from that physical stuff so much easier, I think.
Right, right.
And you brought up something earlier that I want to circle back to about how you didn't want him on medication if you didn't.
Yeah.
And then you just gave him Tylenol. And that's a point that I kind of want to mention too, is like, you shouldn't be giving someone with a head injury aspirin or ibuprofen.
Yes, we did hear that from, I think that was Sports Med or someone that told us no ibuprofen. And so that's
what I immediately went to. I immediately was downing ibuprofen, and then I learned later, and I'm like, oh.
Yes. And then Children's Hospital had said, no, you can try Tylenol or Excedrin extra strength. They did say if he drinks coffee, maybe he could try some coffee. He doesn't like coffee, though. We didn't want to start that habit, right? So, yeah. And he probably then months ago was taking, how many times would you take Tylenol or Excedrin in a week?
Maybe 3 times a week.
Maybe 3 times a week. And now since February, when we started seeing Dr. Schmo, he's maybe taken it once, did you say, in the last few months? So
yeah, I in the very beginning, because I had a lot of physical on top of my brain injury, and I was popping ibuprofen like candy.
Yes. Yeah.
I take it maybe once every, like when we have these weather shifts that really hurt my neck.
Mm-hmm.
And then I might take it, but that's about it. Like I've really backed off even taking the counter and I should say I don't take ibuprofen anymore. I take Tylenol.
Yeah.
But
yes.
I was in the same boat. I had one doctor wanted to put me on Ritalin.
Okay.
I had developed ADD, which, as we know, it's actually the brain injury. It's not ADD.
Yes.
And she wanted to put me on antidepressants and sleeping pills. And I was like, I don't want any of it. Like,
no.
Like, my brain needs to heal, and these drugs are just a Band-Aid.
Yes. Yeah.
And I mean, don't get me wrong. There are situations where people truly do need it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, I was just like, I really want to try alternative methods first.
Right.
If it doesn't resolve, then I'll
And we did go to a neuro-optometrist, and so talking about Band-Aids, she did give him some reader glasses,
Yes,
so that, yeah, to help him with reading, that had a prism in them, and that was his Band-Aid that he would use so he could, he was listening to a lot of audio for the books they were reading, but sometimes you just have to read at school, and these glasses worked phenomenally. But now, since we've seen Dr. Schmo, how often would you say that you have to use them?
Probably not even once a week.
Yeah.
So it's phenomenal. Like, that's why I'm so eager to, what else can we do? Like, let's keep moving it. So I just really want people to know, parents, coaches, refs, the big thing for that cycle of people is to know that maybe don't listen to a 16-year-old. If the ref went to listen to him and went with his own judgment, that maybe let's just get him off the field to have him evaluated.
It surprises me that the ref did let him go back in.
Yeah, and we didn't have sportsmen. That game was JV, which he played to go into varsity, so he was playing that last part of the game. But so there, sadly was no sports med there, so maybe the ref didn't think of it being necessary. I don't know. But, and then the other thing for parents is, you know what, I never thought this would ever happen. We have very athletic kids in all types of sports. I was the parent that signed that concussion sheet of paper every fall, every spring. And I didn't think twice of it, that he won't get hurt out there. And now this happens, that I just want people to really take a step back. Don't be upset when a coach says your kid has to sit for a week until we reevaluate, do an impact test, make sure that they're back to where their normal testing was or whatnot. And follow your heart. If your kid does get a concussion, whether it's sports related or something else, if you know deep down, we all have that gut feeling that maybe this isn't the right doctor for me, maybe even some doctors that truly, we have a chiropractor here that cares so deeply for him, but he's like, I've done everything I can do, and that's the one that referred us to Dr. Schmo. He said, if Dr. Schmo can't help him, I don't even know where to refer you. So, but just knowing he didn't wait to keep taking money from us.
Yeah.
He was so willing and giving as a parent himself. So those are the type of people, if we all just try to remember, it's okay to keep seeking out those type of doctors.
Mm-hmm. And so now, Braden, you guys are in North Dakota, and you are part of a campaign for North Dakota for brain injury awareness. Can you tell us a little bit about that? That's really exciting.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to record that. Even just watching a couple of the other stories that people have had, and the little facts that they have on them, like 13,000 North Dakotans live with that. That's a very big number. Would never have guessed something like that in North Dakota. It really raises awareness.
We've been approached in the community because it's running through our whole state of North Dakota, but we've been approached via Facebook in the community. Just like I said, my husband thinks people are coming out of the woodwork, constantly contacting us now, and we just really want to educate and advocate, and this was a way to do it. And they contacted us because of a local news clip that we had done way back at the beginning when he had his concussion. So it was, a lot of tears even shed as they were videoing. From the ones that were videoing were moms themselves listening to me. They would start crying and be like, oh my goodness, I would have never guessed stalker could cause a TBI. And I said I would have never put him in it if I would have known that either. So
yeah. So do either of you have any advice for anyone that's going through brain injury?
The advice would be probably don't stop. Keep going till you find the right doctors, as we've said, because they're out there. They might be hard to find, but they're out there.
Yeah, I would say the same thing, and be patient. I've learned to have patience through this. It's very hard because you just want things to speed along faster, and give yourself a break, but really advocate for yourself, like how you look perfectly normal and how he's really had to take charge of his life, especially to older adults at school, his teachers and whatnot. They've all been great. But you really just got to keep reminding them because you look perfectly normal. So,
yeah, great advice. Any final words of wisdom for anyone out there? Maybe that was it.
I think that's it. My whole mission in this thing for myself is to educate, like I said, parents, coaches, refs, to make them more aware. Coaches, when I talk to them, they say, oh, we have concussion protocols in place. And I'm like, but you may assess a kid and the kid can also fake certain things and maybe won't tell you they have a headache. Maybe have them just sit out, even if it's just that game, if you're just questioning if the kid is telling you everything. And then for kids, Braden wanting to really educate his peers, right?
Yeah, it's really one game that you would have to sit out, or 1 week. Compared to the rest of your life, you'd have to deal with symptoms and
you know,
things like that.
I think too, just talking about, you know, the coaches. So in Braden's situation, you know, he said, oh, I can finish the game. But even he knew as he was playing, he probably wasn't okay. And the best person should not be the one making decisions.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember I drove to my doctor. I went right away after I fell. And I drove, and as I was driving, I was like, I probably shouldn't be driving. It's just your brain. You should not be the one making the decision.
Right, right.
Very much that ref should have told you, no, stay out, or the coach or someone should have.
Yes.
A little firmer.
I did say if I'm ever at a game and a kid gets a blow, I will be that mom that walks down the bleachers onto that field if they don't get that kid off, because it's just so near and dear to me right now. So.
Well, awesome. Thank you guys for being a part of it.
Yeah, thanks.
And just sharing your story.
Definitely.
You know, I think it's important for people to hear from children as well as adults. You know, sometimes the youth are overlooked in their story. So I'm very glad to see Braden speaking out. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you everyone for watching. And I will put their contact information and I'll put a link to their video below this video so you guys can check out their commercial. And just remember that you are not alone in brain injury.